from the chapter, Black Girls Don't Have Eating Disorders. Stress still makes me break up with food. It's easier now because I've put on enough weight that a skipped meal doesn't make anyone blink. And I have it largely under control, at least in the sense that I manage to eat twice a day, even when food feels like a chore and not a joy. And I know that really means I still have an eating disorder. It's a thing I talk about in therapy with a lovely doctor who is content with my self-imposed rule. I'm not entirely certain she has a better plan for me. Black girls don't have eating disorders, you see, except when they do. There are a lot of things black girls don't have. Safety, security, the kind of magic that erases colorism and racism and a dozen other isms. We develop coping skills major and minor in the absence of better options. Sometimes those coping skills are good ones, like a daily walk or yoga. Sometimes they are deeply unhealthy, whether that be disordered eating or some form of addiction. Girls in marginalized communities have all the same mental and emotional health issues as girls in wealthier communities. Well, except affluenza, which is less a mental health condition, in my opinion, and more a convenient way to excuse horrible behavior. But they are less likely to have the resources or the language to address them, yet they experience significant amounts of trauma and the attendant consequences. Eating disorders are not really about eating habits, even though that is the most obvious symptom of the problem. In fact, eating disorders are rarely even about food. They are more likely to be about other issues in the home or around it. Whether it is divorce, poverty, abuse, or a mix of all of the above, an ED is the outward expression of other issues. They're also depressingly easy to hide in plain sight until the problem reaches a critical mass of ill health and blatant physical signs. Not only do we reward thinness in general, we specifically reward any beauty aesthetic that prioritizes assimilation. For young people of color who are developing bodies that can never actually assimilate into the mythical monochrome of middle America, there is very little validation available in media or anywhere else. Add in the deluge of imagery that associates beauty with whiteness, and for girls of color who are already struggling to love themselves in a world that tells them they are worth less than white girls, there is greater than average risk not only of them developing an eating disorder, but also of it going unrecognized and untreated. And for the lucky few who do receive treatment, whether their program will address the impact of racism or be a source of yet more trauma is difficult to predict. Although we're conditioned to think that most eating disorders develop at the onset of puberty, the truth is the seeds for them are laid much earlier. Children of color enter into prepubescent life with the painful awareness that no matter how many changes our bodies are going through, there's nothing about puberty that can meet standards set by white-centric, unreasonable standards of beauty. Nor is there any part of adolescent development that can counter the anti-blackness, the stereotypes, the hypersexualization, and other issues facing marginalized communities. Puberty might be a primary trigger for people who aren't from otherwise marginalized communities, but for people of color, disabled people, non-binary, and trans people, eating disorders are rooted in part in the structural factors that have been impacting their view of themselves for most, if not all, of their lives. We understand, for instance, that colorism impacts children as early as infancy, with people positioning the prettiness of babies based on hair texture and eye color as a reason that they want mixed-race children.